So our word was float, and so the word float is usually used for objects or talking about Daisy, and it appears when Gatsby is talked about or is in the presence of the word float, and it's also used to describe things that are too distant to grasp, and the characters are too preoccupied with other things to try to grab them.
Sorry, everyone should be taking notes. Go on.
Read the definition.
Oh, okay. So I searched the definition of floated, and it said floated means to remain suspended within or on the surface of a fluid without sinking. And I kind of analyzed that, and I said that I think the word floated has a lot of significance in the book, and that because the dictionary definition says that floating is remaining suspended, I think it relates to Gatsby in the 5 years he's dedicated to finding Daisy, and how he's kind of been like suspended in time, like unable to move on and like kind of like start over and like live his life. I also said floating could represent fantasies, that things that are not part of reality. Something that floats can keep a person from sinking, and maybe that represents the idea of Daisy for Gatsby and how his fantasies of her and his dreams of like being with her kind of like give him a reason for living, and like give him a reason as to like why he needed to become wealthy and like why he needed to make a name for himself. And she kind of like kept him afloat.
And so the first time float comes up in the novel is in the first chapter when Nick is describing Gatsby. And it's like the first time Gatsby comes up. And Nick says that he says, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams, talking about Gatsby himself didn't have any problems. It's just this dust basically floating in front of what he wanted. And so the use of the word float kind of, for one, makes it seem kind of more like a slow process, not just like all of Gatsby's hopes crashed down on him or something. It's more like gradually, or nothing really changed, just these ideas kind of floated in the way of him getting what he wanted. And it also makes it, because like in the upper class, sometimes things just seem to move slower. The idea of like floating dust kind of makes it seem like, okay, it's not like an instant thing, it's just something, they're taking their time, everyone's taking their time all the time.
Alex, one quick thing. The wake is in the back. So like the wake that a boat leaves in the water is
It's the
ripples
behind
in behind the boat. So the foul dust that he left in the wake of his dreams is the stuff that he's leaving behind. Just point of clarification.
So when we talk about the foul dust, it comes up a lot when Daisy's being mentioned. So basically the idea is like the foul dust floating is kind of just the essence of what Gatsby fantasizes about, but it's not actually like a concrete thing that he can actually get.
This one was a tray of cocktails floated at us through the twilight, and we sat down at a table with the 2 girls in yellow and 3 men. Each one introduced us as Mr. Mumble. I said that the whole idea of a tray of cocktails floating is kind of ridiculous, because like a waiter obviously was carrying them, and that it kind of represents like the people at the party fail to like pay attention to people who are actually serving them, and Gatsby has kind of created an atmosphere where it's kind of like people just expect to be served, like everything is like very like fancy, and people don't really pay attention to the people who like have to work for a living. And I said it could possibly represent the upper class and how they live in a world where they expect to be served and they expect to have people do whatever they say. Could represent how luxurious Gatsby makes the parties and how the atmosphere suggests that nobody has to work and that everything is taken care of.
Alright, so the next quote is when everyone, Jordan, Nick, Tom, and Gatsby all go up to New York, and Nick writes, unlike Gatsby and Tom, I had no girl whose disembodied face floated along the dark blah 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 and so forth. But anyway, so the word floated is used for kind of this dream of theirs, that Daisy is floating away. Neither of them can really catch onto her. No one can grab her and like control her. She's always floating in directions.
Ms. Perez, that's 5 minutes.
Okay, wrap it up.
So the last thing we talked about is Nick and Tom are driving home after everything happens, after Myrtle's killed and everything. And it says the Buchanan's house floated suddenly towards us through the blah, blah, blah. So here the use of the word float kind of shows that Tom and Nick are both distant from the current situation, and they're kind of not paying attention to where they are, what's going on. They're thinking about something else. So once again, it connects to the idea of like a dream-like reality that's not really something that you can physically grasp or hold on to.
Awesome, that was great, thanks you guys.